Tony, I got a funny question for you.
Yep.
Is the background I'm showing, is that readable or is it backwards for you?
It's readable.
Okay, cool. For some reason on my end, it shows it reversed.
Sam should be in now, I believe. You're on mute.
Yep. I don't see Dan in the audience yet. Hi, Sam.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Good to see you. I guess I didn't see you yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
Look at all our fun backgrounds. Aren't we festive?
I feel like you're winning in this background race. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I had nothing to do with this. This is all our marketing.
Amazing. All right. We feel good about Dan jumping on here in a minute.
I hope so. Otherwise, I'm going to field questions, Mr. Tony Miller.
Wouldn't be the first time we had to.
Yeah,
Audible.
that's true. That's true.
Awesome. We have a couple people that are just going to start rolling to the audience, I think, a little early. So just if you guys are joining, thanks for bearing with us. We're going to get set up. We'll probably start like 2 minutes after, just to give everyone time to roll in. There's only a few of us here right now, but I'm also going to make sure that everyone has access to chat and everything else. Great. How's your guys' day going?
It's good. It's busy. How about you?
Wait, yeah, definitely. Back to back today.
Yes. Agreed. I agree.
So just so you guys know, we typically see about 3 to 10 minutes after the hour is when like we'll hit kind of peak attendance.
Cool.
As people come off of other meetings, you know how it is,
Yeah.
and then the link to join, etc.
Awesome. Good stuff.
There we go.
There he is.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
I'm
See ya.
home. So you get windows in the background. No phone booth.
Oh, that's right. You didn't end up in the office.
Yeah, no, I went in this morning for some meetings, and then I actually have something in local, so I came back like an hour ago.
Got it. Makes sense.
All right, we're gonna get started here in just about 3 minutes, guys. I think it's good to give just an extra minute or two for folks to roll off other calls. So if you need to go get a glass of water, anything like that, good time to do it. And then we'll get started about 2 minutes after the hour.
Perfect.
Good stuff.
I'm ready to go.
Peter, do you want me to just start sharing my screen now?
It'd be great. And then just so you guys know too, we're recording, so we'll slice it up and put it on our Vimeo site pretty
Awesome.
quickly after we get wrapped up.
Cool.
Sounds good. Peter, you're based out of, you're San Francisco, right? You said?
I am, yeah, I'm in San Francisco. It's quite warm here right now, although I guess for some areas of the country it might be maybe that's an overstatement. It's like 80 here today, and we're a bunch of wusses here, you know. It gets
They
above.
call that your summer, right? Isn't that
Exactly.
September?
Exactly. It's just starting right now.
Nice.
Nice.
Yep. Seems like this week is the week that the fall hit the East Coast. It seems like everyone I've talked to over there is like, oh, it's 40 degrees and freezing.
Yeah. Going to New York this morning, it's like 45. It was freezing out.
Yeah, I've got
Oh,
some
geez.
folks heading up to Chicago, and it's like 20 degrees up there right now. So,
Yep. I'm in Minneapolis and we've had our first couple frosts the last couple of
Oh,
weeks.
yeah.
So
oh yeah.
it'll be
Awesome.
60 again Saturday, so we're okay.
So weird.
Great. Well, let's see. I mean, we've got people rolling in right now. I think why don't we go ahead and get started with a little bit of introductions, and then by the time people continue to roll in, we'll be getting to the content. So that sound good to you guys?
Yeah, works for us.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for everyone who is on time and prompt today. It's always nice to see a quorum early. If you guys don't know me, I'm Peter. I lead partnerships at Startup CPG, and I facilitate a lot of our webinars. We've got the team at Crisp here today with us, as well as Daniel from 𝐀𝐿. Really excited to kind of hear from them about distributor data and Crisp and what they're up to. So I'll go ahead and kick it over to Samantha to introduce the team and get going, but I will also be here to kind of facilitate some questions. Throughout the presentation, please drop questions in the chat or the Q&A feature, and I will make sure we get them answered. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Well, Peter, thanks for the introduction. And we're really excited to join the Startup CPG community today to talk about the 5 things you should be tracking in your distributor data and why leveraging this data can help you build a successful retail business. So some quick introductions. I'm Samantha Chen. I'm VP of Sales here at Crisp, and I'm joined today by Tony Miller, our Director of Sales Engineering, and a very special guest, 𝐀𝐿 from 𝐁𝐿, who will share with us how he and his team utilizes data to drive daily decisions in Crisp a little bit later in our presentation. So, quick outline of what you can expect today. We'll first start by introducing Crisp. We'll go into the 5 data points you should be tracking and why. You'll hear from Dan on his data strategy, and Tony will give us a quick demo of the platform. And we'll wrap up with a Q&A and a special offer for folks joining us today or later down the line watching the recording. So we'll start here. First, who are we? Well, Crisp is a data collaboration platform that helps emerging brands like you seamlessly leverage data from their distributor and retail partners. We help you uncover business critical insights that can help you grow your business while streamlining your data processes. Crisp is also a mission-driven company founded with the mission to reduce food waste. And by helping brands like you get more visibility into your retail supply chain, you can better grow your sales, manage inventory, and reduce the waste in the process. So we have over 300 brands on the Crisp platform today. As you can see, some are household names, but we have a ton of emerging brands that are just starting out with their retailer and distributor partnerships. So having spoken with hundreds of brands, we know how challenging the industry is for emerging brands. We also know that this data historically has not been easy to access or make sense of. So today, we're going to help demystify distributor data and give you the 5 things you really need to look out for. So moving to the first is velocity. Velocity is arguably the most important metric of your sales performance. So it's important that you're not only aware of velocity, but you know how it breaks down by product, region, and retailer. With that information, you're able to identify where your performance is super strong, what strategies are working, and what stores are a good fit for your brand. These are the metrics that really matter when crafting a compelling retail buyer pitch. And to give you an example, Outstanding Foods use velocity data to show buyers strong sales across regions, making the case for expansion. And today they're nationally distributed. I think we missed that. There it is. There's the quote. Sometimes we get fancy with the automations here at Crisp, you know, got to keep things interesting. The second area you need to track is supply chain. So if you're working with distributors, you need to monitor and understand how efficiently your products are getting to stores. So monitoring supply chain data is how you'll know if anything disrupts that process along the way. VP of Sales at Midday Squares says that making sure DCs and retailers get product in on time is the biggest lever he has to increasing sales. And he's using Crisp to track that daily. This leads us to inventory. Managing and positioning your inventory efficiently helps you reduce out of stocks and run a leaner, more efficient business. We recommend monitoring weeks of supply so you know how well stocked your DCs and retailers are. Equally as important is keeping a pulse on where your inventory is too heavy, so you can take steps to move that product before it expires. In our example from Greenleaf Foods, they are a really big believer that you need to cut costs before you even think about bringing in new opportunities. And they monitor inventory data for this reason, which has helped them avoid penalties and wasted product. So next up is sales. Now at Crisp, we think sales data falls into two main categories: the top level trends that give you a big picture of your business, and then the details, where you can see what events are impacting your business by product, region, and retailer. This can really help you understand seasonal trends of your product and work backwards to plan everything from successful promotion to even production schedule. So the team at Split Nutrition says they check their sales data in Crisp every single morning, which helps them identify top accounts and prioritize the things that need their attention every week. And finally, voids. Voids are issues that can happen at the store level or along your supply chain. Once you've identified a potential void, you can work with buyers to rectify the issue, but identifying the issue is really hard to do, especially when you're an emerging brand and you're running a super lean team. That's why Crisp built a voids model for distributor and retail data sources. We use machine learning to analyze 13 data points on past sales to help you identify areas where you should be selling but are not. This is probably really, this is one of my favorite case studies. In a recent case study with Sun Butter, they shared with us that they saved over $250K so far this year alone, and this case study came out a couple months ago, just by resolving voids using the Crisp platform. It's pretty incredible. Now you may be thinking this is all good and great, but what does Crisp actually look like within a CPG business day to day? So I'm pleased to introduce Dan Capron, Director of Sales, Strategy, and Planning at 𝐀𝐿, to help answer that question. So Dan, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to chatting with everyone today.
Yeah, I thought actually going a little bit, off our plan here, I figured maybe if folks aren't familiar with 𝐀𝐿, do you want to give a little intro to 𝐀𝐿?
Absolutely. Thank you for the offer there. So
Yeah.
𝐀𝐿 is a food tech company. We were founded in Chile, Santiago, back in 2016. Started the business with Mayo, and we entered the US market in November of 2020, approaching roughly 2 years on shelf, close to 10,000 points of distribution across the US with 4 categories. We just launched a joint venture with Kraft Heinz, where we'll be launching potentially co-branded products across the market. And with regards to 𝐀𝐿𝐴 standalone, we have a lot of growth opportunities for next year and a ton of products that we'll be entering into across various frozen aisles on the shelf.
Awesome. Very cool. And you guys have amazing recipes on your website, just saying.
Absolutely. Our not milk 64-ounce cooks, blends, foams, just like the real thing.
It's so good. Tell us a little bit about, your data process before using Crisp.
So prior to using Crisp, we really had a very manual process to clean and reconcile our distributor data. It was extremely time consuming. It led to unnecessary data cleansing and harmonization. And, as the leader of the sales strategy team here at 𝐀𝐿𝐴, I was really looking for an efficient way to download distributor data, put it into visualizations, and have quick information with a couple clicks. And Crisp really solved that need state for us.
Awesome. What triggered you? Like, what in your data process felt unsustainable that you started looking for a solution like Crisp?
So one of the biggest problems we ran into was the hours it would take to clean up the distributor data. And it really took us away from the value-added work that we're really here for on the strategy side of the house. We're a lean team. We run a lean organization here at 𝐀𝐿𝐴. And, we have 2 people under me on the team. And instead of having the analysts put a couple hours into downloading distributor data, putting into usable information that we can draw recommendations off of, we were really looking for a way to put time back into our day for the value-added work. I figured there had to be an easier way to go about this, did some research, and really landed on Crisp. And one of the beauties of this is that we share this with our direct selling team. So with the Crisp unlimited licenses, which is a major benefit to the platform, it allows me to create custom dashboards for the sales directors, which gives them a POV of their business with just a couple clicks.
Awesome. So can you talk a little bit about what your data process overall looks like today using Crisp?
Absolutely. So we really leverage Crisp dashboards and the Excel outbound connectors to analyze our distributor performance. And we also most recently added in 2 retailer connectors, being Whole Foods and Wegmans. So essentially on Mondays, it's a real big day to day. We want to analyze the prior week performance. Are there any shortfalls across the key metrics that we want to look into? And we essentially press the entire team into using the Crisp dashboard to check the key metrics that we want to analyze. Sales, velocity, distribution, weeks of supply on the inventory side of the house. And it's kind of a seamless process that we now have in place. And Crisp was one of the key drivers that allowed to this efficiency that we were able to create with the cross-functional team.
Awesome. So, being in a strategy position, from your perspective, why is it important to have a handle on distributor data? Why is that so important for your business?
When it really comes to strategic planning, one of the key metrics that we want to monitor through the distributors is a retailer level out of stock. As a growing brand and a growth and scaling stage, every sale counts. We want to make sure that every end consumer has a 64-ounce of not milk, a single serve 8-ounce in their kid's lunchbox. What we've realized is there's a direct correlation between consistent out of stocks and the retailers dropping you from the set entirely, specifically in smaller natural channel chains, which are distributed through UNFI and 𝐀𝐿𝐴. Crisp provided us with the ability to monitor sales at both the retailer level as well as the store level to prevent out of stocks, which in the end took away from our end goal of democratizing plant-based and providing consumers with delicious plant-based products.
Awesome. So how are you using distributor data in your strategic planning today?
Yeah, and one of the key things that we use in strategic planning is really circled around supply chain management. We are a growing brand. We do not have, direct customer solution specialists that have, the ear of the 𝐂𝐿𝐴 buyers. So we have to get very creative and crafty with how we come with insights and can convey the message in a couple quick bullet points in an email. Using the Crisp inventory dashboard across both UNFI and 𝐀𝐿𝐴, as well as the 𝐀𝐿𝐴 fill rate to store dashboard, we're able to come with very useful and value-added metrics that get us to be prescriptive with the insights that we want to push into our specific buying teams at UNFI and 𝐀𝐿𝐴. So just to use an example, Unified Dayville, we're out of stock on burger. We're able to monitor the weeks of supply after a 1-week refresh, figure out where the fill rates fell down, and actually give a recommendation on a case count order to that Unified Dayville buyer. Without Crisp in our prior world, that was a very tedious and manual exercise that required pulling multiple reports from the Unified Dashboard, reconcile in Excel. We're able to basically solve this problem in under 30 minutes using the Crisp solution. And that's just, one, I would call it a gold standard case study of how we work cross-functionally with the team to essentially drive higher sales across our distributor base.
Wow, that's under 30 minutes. That's incredible. You mentioned that the NotCo team uses Crisp for retail and distributor data. Can you share a little bit about how that impacts your decision making?
Oh, absolutely. And I do want to walk through one specific example that's fresh as of late. What we did was leverage our harmonized Crisp data to find out store level performance in regions where store level sales typically aren't available. So for the broader CPG community that's on the call, I'm sure we've all ran into conversations with our cross-functional marketing team wanting to understand performance at store level for a certain retailer. To use an example of Delhaize, we partner with one of the syndicated data houses for our syndicated store level sales. And in some instances, store level data isn't actually available. So what we're able to do is come out with a very hacky way to determine which cities we should target for a specific SKU that was underperforming versus the rest of our distribution that we had in that geographical area. So to dive a bit further, what we're able to do is pull store level sales, which is unified sales to the specific store, and determine which stores had lower velocity versus the category RMA average that we were seeing. This allowed our marketing team to have addresses where they should target a specific marketing campaign towards those consumers in those specific cities. Without Crisp, we wouldn't be able to come up with this hacky method of understanding store level draggers because it's not available via syndicated data. So it's kind of eye-opening in terms of the information that's provided by just understanding what you can pull and how to leverage it.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say, we use the term aha moments here at Crisp a lot, because when we watch people see the dashboards kind of for the first time, they're like, aha, that's what's going on in my business.
Exactly.
Do you have any examples of aha moments or specific insights you found using the Crisp platform?
Yeah, no, especially when we first joined the Crisp family back in late 2021, there was a ton of aha moments, but they've continued to evolve, and I feel like a new one pops up once a month. But one issue we ran into recently was having a miss across Unify in the specific Southeast region of their orders against our internal forecast. It was a drastic miss, fell short by, call it 20 to 30%. And we wanted to figure out why. What was the situation? Why did they miss? We've been pretty spot on with our forecast bias, plus or minus 2% for a consistent period of time. There had to be some sort of smoking gun, for lack of a better word. So we dove into the Crisp platform and did kind of two things. What we're able to understand via the inventory dashboard is which DCs in that Southeast region were sitting high on inventory and why. What is the reason that they were sitting high? So we went into the Unify weekly sales dashboard and was able to pull by store by RMA, essentially the overall retailer roll-up, where we saw sales drop off. And one of the conclusions we landed on is that this specific subset of stores in the Southeast region was out of stock on shelf because Unified DCs were shorting the stores. This could be, you could land on this conclusion many different ways by pulling the data. But again, it all leads to the mindset of being efficient and kind of working smarter versus working harder. And what we were able to do with Crisp is parlay the inventory dashboard with the weekly sales to figure out where we had out of stocks. And that's the root cause of the reason that DC was sitting heavy on inventory. When that DC is sitting heavy on inventory, they then ordered less against us versus what we were initially forecasting. So it's really connecting the dots across the data field versus having to pull, again, various reports manually and coming up with this conclusion yourself. Crisp kind of speeded up that process. And, we now have a more fundamental process in place to replicate this when we see these issues again.
I love that, connecting the dots. That's the goal.
Exactly.
You know, I think a lot of this community are probably really focused on growing distribution and expanding and preparing for retail buyer meetings. How have you used CRISP to kind of prepare for a buyer meeting? Have you used data in those conversations?
Yeah, no, very, very good question, Sam. And honestly, that leads to why we enhanced our contract and added in the Wegmans dashboard. So one thing that we've come to realize is, you know, the buyers really want to understand their in-store performance versus what syndicated data houses are spinning out. That's the buyer data that they're looking at. They're making decisions off of that information. So with the Wegmans connector, which is now an offering from CRISP, they actually pipe in Wegmans portal information to the CRISP visualizations. And we're currently in a line review on our refrigerated business and putting the deck together and the category insights via the CRISP information that we're seeing from the Wegmans portal. This is kind of a change of mind of how we're going about presenting to the Wegmans buyer. And when we replicated this process with the septic, it actually led to incremental distribution on our portfolio because we essentially spoke the same language as the buyer. Without CRISP, you have to download the information directly from the portal. Again, do a lot of manual manipulation because it's very ugly, it's not clean, it's not telling a concise story. And CRISP essentially speeded up that process. And now we're speaking apples to apples when we present to this buyer in our upcoming line reviews.
I love that. You've got a lot of little good nugget quotes there. Speaking apples to apples, I like it. As we wrap up this portion, when it comes to data, especially distributor data, what advice would you give to brands on this call?
Yeah, the big takeaway for 𝐀𝐿 is data is your friend. We've really been able to leverage the CRISP usability, functionality, the ease of downloading data to become smarter, more intelligent of how our business is performing. CRISP really provides a super easy way to visualize data in an effective manner, saves a ton of hours on ad hoc analysis and PowerPoint building. You know, we have weekly LT meetings and I can quickly go into CRISP, download a graph and drop it into a slide, and it's already LT ready. It doesn't require additional manipulation. Empowerment to the sales team is a really big thing. We truly value the empowerment model here, and we want to give our sales team the ammo to be effective in understanding the shortfalls of their overall performance within their book of business. This allows the account managers to truly understand and have a pulse of where their business is trending with just a couple clicks. But to really recap, data is your friend. I mean, downloading distributor portal information, it's ugly, it's not helpful. You have to do a lot of mapping, and CRISP essentially harmonizes all of that into one offering, and it's really saved us a ton of time and made us have a better understanding of our shortfalls.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Dan, it's always a pleasure. You know, we love having the 𝐀𝐿 team as part of the CRISP family and really appreciate you joining us today.
Of course, thanks for taking the time for us to just talk about how 𝐀𝐿 is using the platform. And again, for the people on the call, I can't recommend CRISP enough. They're a great partner. Their customer solutions team's amazing, and they're always there whenever we have a question.
They are amazing. Yeah, they really are. Thank you again. I'm excited to now having the conversation from the top 5 tips and tricks to Dan's conversation to now introduce Tony Miller, Director of Sales Engineering, to actually take you into the platform so you can see some of these use cases in action in the CRISP platform. Take it away, Tony.
Thank you, Samantha. See if I can get out of full screen mode. There we go. So jumping into the platform here, like Samantha said, Director of Sales Engineering here at CRISP. I actually came from category management myself. So I was on the brand side. I had more Mondays than I care to living in Excel, pulling this data, compiling it. Part of what brought me to CRISP was not just the idea of me getting out of the Monday morning reporting business, but helping everyone kind of get out of that Monday morning pulling of reports and actually getting to analyze those reports. So starting off here, kind of give a high-level overview, and we'll dive into some of the use cases that Dan hit on. So year-over-year sales reporting within Unify. This is where I would come right away on a Monday to understand what is our performance? How are we doing versus prior year? what do things look like? Starting off with an overview, your 30,000-foot view of what's happening within my business. What are your cases shipped compared to the prior year? What's happening from a dollars perspective? What does that look like across each one of my items and my products? How am I selling from, in this case, a fake energy drink company that we've built? What does that performance look like? As we keep scrolling down in these dashboards, you're always going to see a next level of granularity. So we'll start with an overview. We get down to our drivers. This drivers section is going to have a heat map, and then it's going to be that next layer you want to drill and filter into. So I've got my sales by chain across UNFI, the sales by DC to understand where those shipments are coming from, and then the different channels that UNFI recognizes. At the bottom of all these is going to be our details section. This details section is going to have store level, item level, sales information. So how would I use this as I come in here? Well, maybe I want to understand, what's driving our growth. Looking at this, we have pretty uniform growth across a bunch of our products. And instead of focusing on growth, I want to understand, well, why is 𝐕𝐝𝐻 not growing as fast as some of these items? I can come in here, click on 𝐕𝐝𝐻, understand that they're only growing 6% from their cases shipped. And with one click, I can now see, well, what's happening within my items. It looks like my original, in this case, I believe that's a 16 ounce is down. That was my #1 item last year. And now it's my number 2. Well, I want to understand what's happening, what's causing this. So I click on that item. Now we are cross-filtered on 𝐕𝐝𝐻 and our 16-ounce energy drink. I can come down here. There's one DC it's shipping out of, but now I have my store list to understand which stores are driving this decline. I could say, maybe I want to see which stores were shipping the most last year and what is that impact there. If this is something where I want to get this store list, take it out of here to take action on it, work with 𝐕𝐝𝐻, work with UNFI, any data table that we have, I can export. Hit these 3 dots, hit download data, and now I have this in a CSV, in Excel to share it, whatever I want to do with it. It's really easy to kind of dive into these different things. When I'm done with this problem that I'm looking at, I hit the X, I back out, and now I can go into something else. Maybe I want to understand, are my DCs all growing sales at a similar rate? And understand, is there something I need to prepare for? Because we have a production facility on each side of the country, and I need to know where the production growth is shifting across the country to look at some of that. I want to dive into DC, or maybe I just need to know what products are shipping out of this DC and what particular retailers are supported by this. It's really easy to get to that level of insight with just a couple of clicks, not having to pull multiple reports. So now I know kind of where that shipments are going and what products we're looking at. From here, I'm going to navigate over to our velocity dashboard within UNFI. So pull down that drop down, hit velocity. Now I can understand as it loads over time, how are my velocities within UNFI across my different items? What do I want to focus on here? Maybe we're launching a new product. So this is where, as this loads, I want to start to pinpoint, maybe I want to know what retailers to talk to. Maybe I want to know what stores to really go after as we're putting together this store list for this new product we're launching. So continuing through this example with this energy drink company that we have created, maybe we are going to launch a 32-ounce watermelon flavor. So we think it'll do similarly to the 16-ounce watermelon flavor. So let's use that as our proxy item. Let's select that. So now I can come down here and know, A, is there regionality within UNFI I want to focus on? Is there a particular channel? I want to know, where do I have the most distribution across my different chains for this 16-ounce, because those are the retailers that I want to target as I'm launching this new item. You've got confidential. We all know within UNFI, that's mostly going to be Whole Foods that's showing up there. And then we've got Stop and Shop as the number 2. Let's pinpoint that. That's what we want to focus on for this expansion. I need to know, as we're looking at these DCs, is there a difference within Stop and Shop for this product for the DCs? Do I want to maybe just focus on launching in those 216 stores out of this particular DC where I have that better velocity? Again, I can keep clicking my way through to get to my additional levels of granularity. And now at the bottom, I have a full store list of, here are all the stores that I know we currently have that 16-ounce SKU at Stop and Shop pulling from this DC, ready to export, ready to work with a buyer to sell in this new item. So jumping from some of the sales and velocity metrics, we're going to dive into 𝐀𝐻 and some of their supply chain inventory. So the first one I want to look at is, what are my fill rates from 𝐀𝐻 to the stores? How are they fulfilling those orders that those stores are sending in? So I've got my fill rate over time. So that's going to let me know, how are they doing? How are they hitting on those orders? And then below that, I have my potential lost sales. The potential lost sales essentially represents the dollar amount of those shipments that were not fulfilled by 𝐀𝐻. So those are always going to work in inverse. Those potential lost sales are going to spike when my fill rates dip. I'm able to see these again, broken down by product. Which products have the best, the worst fill rate? Which one have the highest unfulfilled units or potential lost sales? Are we having a meeting with, say, Sprouts coming up? And I want to understand how are they impacted by some of these fill rates within 𝐀𝐁. I can click on that to now understand which items we're seeing some of the worst fill rates and what are those potential lost sales. Maybe those are items that they're possibly looking at discontinuing or cutting. Now we have some explanation of why those sales were lower than what they expected and what they should have done. Taking this information, pairing it up with what's actually on hand within 𝐀𝐁 is key. So I can come into the inventory dashboard. So now I can understand what are my on hands? What are my weeks of supply? What does that look like, not just by item, but by DC and by item DC combination? So again, overview at the top, understanding my inventory levels across each one of my items within 𝐀𝐁 supply chain. What are my weeks of supply? My dollars on hand, my quantity on hand. What's scheduled to come into these DCs on a PO, as well as what do we have ready to go out on a sales order? This is where maybe I want to track, like, how much do we have shipping out? Do we have enough to get it by product? Do I want to know, what do I have too much coming in of? What do I have too much weeks of supply? Again, one click to kind of make these adjustments and sorting and filtering. As I come down here to understand what things are looking like by DC, it's those same metrics. What do I have on hand? What's my weeks of supply? What's my quantity on PO? And what's my quantity going out on a sales order? 𝐀𝐁 is nice where they give us access to information to understand what are the code dates? How are we as we're getting closer to these expirations? Are we tracking of, understanding we have units that are close to expiration where we really need to essentially focus on getting these items out of 𝐀𝐁's inventory and into the stores or into a third-party wholesaler who knows how to handle the short-dated information. You're also able to go and essentially look at things when the 𝐀𝐁 inventory at risk report. Well, now I can understand, based on this sell by date and the current velocities out of this DC, this is what I'm expected to have left over when this sell by date hits. Even though this item is almost a year out for when we'll have 11,000 items left over, that's still 11,000 items I want to keep an eye on from that expiration, that kind of lot code example that we have there. And again, at the bottom, DC level, product level information. This is whereas I would look at it, probably want to say, well, what do I have on a PO? Does it make sense of where it's going in and how much I have compared to my weeks of supply? Or do I want to see what I have on a sales order? Do I have the quantity on hand to meet that demand? Or are we again going to have shortages there? So jumping from here, the next thing is we're talking, the voids, the out of stocks. So this is where I can come in and look at what do I have from a voids perspective. So when we talk about voids, it means in this case on the distributor side, there's an abnormal gap in the cadence of their ordering. So these retailers' store locations are taking longer to order than normal, or I've stopped ordering. So I can track my voids over time to understand what direction are they going? Are they going up? Are they going down? What were they last week compared to that last 4-week average? What items might be driving this? I can continue to come down again, see is there regionality built into it? What state, what city, what distributor are causing the majority of these voids, all the way down to what chain? Maybe I want to focus particularly on Publix. Maybe I want to see everything that's available here. I can then come down to understand what are the actual store item combinations and how long has it been since this store ordered this particular item from whatever distributor is supporting them. When we look at this on the retail side, so if you're connected to any retail data, it goes one step further. Because on the retail side, we have access to actual point of sale information. So now I can understand not just is there a gap in ordering, but is there a gap in consumers being able to purchase this item? So is this product out of stock? Is there ghost or phantom inventory that are driving these voids? Again, tracking that over time. What items are driving this? What states, what retailers are driving this? In the example I want to focus on, we're going to hit on Kroger. So maybe we have a meeting with a Kroger buyer coming up and we want to discuss voids or what's happening. I click on that and now I can see what store is it? Where is that store located? How many weeks has it been since this particular product was physically sold in this actual store? And what is my average weekly dollar velocity for this product in the store? So I know that that's not just the opportunity that we missed out on, but that's the opportunity that Kroger missed out on because this void, this out of stock exists. So using that to leverage maybe better, ordering cadence from Kroger, or maybe it's a conversation of we're saving a product because it keeps showing up on voids. We hit everything on time and in full to Kroger's DCs, but they're still having out of stocks. How do we fix that? How do we partner with them using the data to show them where we're having these voids and out of stocks that they might be missing? So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Samantha here.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, before I pass it back to Peter, Big thank you to Tony, big thank you to Dan, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. We would really love to help you leverage your distributor data and put all of these best practices in place. And so we're offering the startup CPG community a 60-day free trial, no strings attached. This includes unlimited user licenses like Dan referenced, so your entire team can test out the platform, onboarding, training, and support. In addition, we're offering startup CPG members an exclusive 20% discount off our list prices through December 30th. So you can go to gocrisp.com/startupcpg to learn more, to just chat with us, to start your free trial. And I know Peter will be sending out some follow-up as well. So thank you so much. I'll pass it over to Peter.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's super great. I have a couple questions, and I know that we had one or two questions that came in as well. So I want to start with kind of a question to all three of you guys, and that's really, for some of the folks on this call who may be very early stage, right? They might not be in distribution right now. They might be selling mostly D2C. How should they think about CRISP and when it's the right time to start a conversation with CRISP or a tool like it in their planning process?
I don't mind fielding the answer. I mean, from the vendor side of the house, I think at all stages, it really circles into just understanding your business's performance. And if there is what I'd call an API connector plugin for an outlet that you're selling to that can be piped into CRISP, there's going to be immediate value. That's kind of my perspective from the sales strategy lens.
Tony, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, as you are starting to expand past 1 or 2 distribution centers and any of the distributors, is kind of the threshold. That's usually the point where you're kind of hitting the influx of, do I expand our team to sell, to analyze the data, and what does that look like? And we can really help kind of cut that cost first before you have to hire an analyst to do that, where you can now quickly slice and dice multiple retailers, multiple distributors of data.
Yep, agreed.
Yep, that makes sense. So really for early stage brands, as they kind of get into that first DC, maybe that second warehouse, that's when the demand for that brand to actually be looking at that data, which I would say is kind of not always a given. A lot of times, brands will get into distribution and either not know that data exists for them to go after, or be spread a little bit too thin to actually spend the time doing that, which has also been, my experience being on the sales side in the past. It's just, it's a heavy lift to actually go after that. Daniel, this is a question specifically for you, and Samantha and Tony might laugh. So I just joined a company called Core, who is a customer of CRISP, and so I'm now getting access to the platform for the first time, and I'm on the other side of the desk on the sales side. So I'm kind of your customer in a lot of ways from where you sit in sales strategy. But I'd be really curious to hear, selfishly, what are the things that you guys are serving up to the sales team in terms of information that they're looking at through the platform, and how are they kind of using that with their conversations? I know we covered that a little bit, but I'd love for you to expound on kind of where is the value being driven to the sales team right now?
Yep, absolutely. No, really, really good question. One of the underlying key components of value that we bring to the table with the sales team having the ability to just have a pulse of their business, how is sales trending, is really on the weekly sales dashboard. So it's a standard graph that Tony actually demoed for both Unify and 𝐀𝐁, and you can really create a custom grouping so you can understand how your either subset of accounts, how one specific account's performing, and look at their case pull through the Unify or the 𝐀𝐁 DCs on a weekly basis. So in theory, as you're selling more on shelf, that store is going to pull more from the distributors. So it's a very decent proxy to understand how much contribution they're actually making to the gross revenue that the company is seeing. As you know, it gets very messy when you're trying to understand your size of the business when only Unify is ordering, right? That could be shared across 3 account managers with 100 different end retailers. So this allows them to understand their size of business and their contribution to the total Unify pie. And one of the beauties of CRISP is that you can create saved dashboards, so a custom view just for you. You go in on Monday, it automatically is refreshed. You click on your couple of dashboards that you want to look at. And then you automatically have a perspective on how prior week performances was, and if you're trending in the positive direction. The other thing is when like the sales VP is asking the team for performance, they're able to go into a visualization tool, do quick demos over a Slack call versus having to download the data manually, do analysis and create graphs. All of this is solved for you with the Crisp solution.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it more deeply. It's only been a couple of weeks in this role, but already it's incredible how quickly accessible it is versus, I've spent an ungodly amount of hours in the KDA Unified portals throughout the years. So it's nice to have a central place for that. Two questions that I would ask to Sam and Tony. One, and this may be too big of a question to answer right now without having a slide on it, but just kind of curious, like the total ecosystem and world of connectors that you guys work with might be helpful for people to see. I think for this cohort, the most immediately actionable thing would be 𝐀𝐁 Unified connectors, as well as some of the direct retailer connectors like Whole Foods and Wegmans. But it'd be awesome to kind of see that total ecosystem of who you guys can connect with. And then as a second part of that, I think that's probably a good segue to understand at least high level how pricing works with Crisp as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have over 40 data integrations now across retailers, distributors, and e-com data sources. I know e-com is also a piece where a lot of early stage brands kind of get their feet wet as well. So, and Whole Foods, Unified, 𝐀𝐁, I think those were the three listed. We kind of call those our favorite trio here at Crisp for the emerging brand, because it's kind of that perfect mix that everyone seems to have. In terms of pricing, we do have a couple different tiers, and our goal is to make this financially feasible for brands to use. So we do have early stage pricing for that specific reason that helps make this something that you can incorporate into your budget. And that's also why the trial is so valuable. So you can get in there and assess, is this something I can allocate budget to? Does it make sense for my business today? Or do I need to wait 6 months, a year before? So that is really why that 60-day trial is in place. So you can assess the costs, but we do have early stage tiered pricing.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Great. Well, anyone else, if you guys have any other questions, I know we've gotten through a lot of content already, but if there's any other questions, we can answer them now. If not, I think we can kind of give some time back to folks.
Awesome.
Cool. Going once, going twice. I think we're good. I will say to everyone on the call, the Crisp team has been incredibly responsive. If you guys have any questions after the fact, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to go ahead and volunteer you guys. Go ahead and reach out to Samantha and Tony and the team.
Yeah, please.
I think you guys are in our Slack as well, right? Yep.
And I have a couple of people from my team who are in the Slack channel as well. So yeah.
Awesome. And then, if you missed the beginning of the call and got on late, we'll have opportunity for you guys to see the video after the fact. We have one other question, actually. So question came in last minute. Is this something that would make sense for a brand that's mostly in food service versus retail? I'll kick that over to the Crisp team.
Yeah, that is a good question. We don't have a whole lot of support on the food service side. That doesn't mean that we won't eventually. I would need to know a little bit more about where they would be selling, because sometimes folks have business in food service, and our current connector list, which I can get to you, Peter, to send in follow-up to.
Perfect.
You might find some alignment there. So I would just love to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of food service is distributor driven as well in other ways. So I'm sure as you guys continue to build out your connector list, that'll continue to be more and more relevant.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for the time. Daniel, it was great having you join us as well. Nice to meet you all. And we will chat soon, I'm sure.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Peter.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Bye.